Kiwi. It's 18 away from 9.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
And joining us now in the Kiwi studios, Simon Pounds, back once again. We're talking advertising. G'day there, Simon.
G'day, Glenn. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And in particular, talking today about that campaign that I haven't really been talking about because I've been kind of a little bit over the coverage, particularly from the mainstream media about it.
The Cougar thing, isn't it annoying, that coverage? And you just know as all of those stories are coming out, you're like, someone is sitting there in Adland rubbing their hands going, the suckers, I can't believe they're covering this like this.
Now before we get too deep into it, we should just play a little bit of the audio from it so that people can understand exactly what we're talking about. Here is the Grabaseat Wildlife Episode 1, The Cougar.
The Cougar. Too old to be your girlfriend, too young to be your mother. Easily identifiable by its strong markings and orange skin, the cougar is mostly seen in the wild, patrolling its territory with an unsteady gait. Often aggressive to younger cubs, the cougar is known predominantly for its curious diet, starving itself on sparse vegetation during the day, then hunting large slabs of meat at night. Here we see a herd of young males nervously gathering at a watering hole. The cougar waits on the edges for one of the males to foolishly separate itself from the protection of the herd. Once isolated, the young male is vulnerable and often paralyzed.
And so it continues with the cougar preying on the younger males at a bar. But Simon, can you give us an explanation of what's actually going on?
Well, the video itself was produced and was part of an online-only promotion that you'd find at the Grabaseat site, whereby women who wanted to could, as long as they were over the age of 35, could send in a photo of them out in the town, effectively being a cougar, out with their cougar pack and doing cougarish things. And if they sent in these photos, they could win tickets to get to the Sevens that happened down in Wellington.
Yeah.
And so it was an internet-only promotion on Grabaseat, which is a really kind of irreverent kind of place. All of their advertising and branding has been a little bit cheeky, a little bit out there. You know, they used the acronym SFA, and they said, you know, bugger off for bugger all. You know, they kind of have been trying to push a little bit around that place. And the prize was tickets to the Sevens, which is famously a festival where people drink and party and they dress up in costumes and act kind of silly. You know, it's a festival atmosphere. And so if you won these tickets, you'd be part of the Cougar Pride, and they'd give you all cougar uniforms to go to the Sevens. And then in a separate but linked promotion, a radio station was going to provide 10 young guys to be the prey, the meat for these cougars.
No
in Wellington.
No flights.
I think they're
there,
flying
though.
them down there and looking after them. It was
okay.
the whole kind of shebang.
Yeah.
And so that is the context for the ad. It was produced for the internet only. It was linked to a campaign that was aimed at a specific kind of type of person that would be interested in the Sevens and was interested in a laugh and interested in dressing up and doesn't take life too seriously. And from that starting point, it's just blown up into this massive brouhaha. We have had stories in, you know, Herald stuff on Close Up. It's been in the Sydney Morning Herald. It's been in the Daily Telegraph in London. It's been in The Economist has covered it on their website. You know, it's travelled the world. It's been on fark.com. It's been on FARK.
Yes.
It's been on the Huffington Post. You know, it was a dig topic. You know, like it's really just been covered everywhere.
Well, and because it was a web campaign, it was aiming to get that kind of coverage, surely.
In their wildest dreams, they couldn't have hoped to have had such good coverage. You know, like there's the agency that is credited for it online, although I have yet to confirm this in primary research, is 99, who also did the Nothing to Hide campaign, which are the body painted Air New Zealand videos, like the safety video and the ad they did. And that was another enormous online hit for them. That Nothing to Hide campaign has had more than 10 million views all up across the YouTube videos.
Wow.
I mean, it's an extraordinary success.
So basically, it's the ultimate viral video. It's something that people found obviously funny or offensive, but wanted to share.
Yeah, well, the things that people have found funny and or offensive about it are a bit unusual. Like, a lot of the coverage was driven by the fact that some people who work in rape prevention and in rape education, and a couple of people who work in women's rights and who are women, have said that it was misogynist. So it's being said to... The main concerns have been that it's misogynist and that it paints women as these sexually predatory, one-dimensional characters who prey on young men. And the other complaint is that it trivialises male rape and it glorifies something around it.
That's a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Well, I'd hesitate to tell male rape victims to lighten up because it's not really our place to tell people who've had ordeals to lighten up. I would say that from the context of the video, the guy isn't stupefied. He isn't drugged and knocked over the head. The woman isn't intimidating. He's not bound. He doesn't seem to be against his will. The woman isn't physically stronger than him. You know, if he was tied to the bed or drugged or squirming or crying or had bloody cuts or something, then yes, you know, it would be concerning. But as it is, it's a joke. Yeah. And whether you think the joke works or not, it's still a joke.
But let's talk about that. I mean, okay, sure, it's been shared around and sort of everyone seems to know about it.
It's had 180,000 views just on YouTube, and it's also been available in other ways. So,
well, in your view, was it executed very well at all?
Well, I think that for what they did, a relatively low budget, internet-only idea that was socially observant and humorous, I think they nailed it, for what they were doing. If you're going to hold it up there as is this the funniest video in the history of time, you'd probably say no. There were bits of it that didn't work for me. Yeah. There were bits of it that did work. I loved the Cougar expert, and I loved the line about Enya and Eurythmics, and there are a couple of things in there that really gelled for me, but there are a couple of things that didn't. It's not perfect. I reckon that if it was,
because I personally thought the Cougar thing has been overdone. It's gone. I didn't know it was still around or was still a thing that you could create a campaign out of.
Well, it may not be the most kind of current kind of thing, but it does work in that. I think there are always people who still find jokes that aren't. I mean, there's still people doing Austin Powers lines, you can't say that there is a market for it. Yeah. Although that said, although I didn't find it riotously funny, it did do what it was meant to do, which it was meant to be a humorous video, and it was, evidently. Yeah. There's people who loved it in the online forums and the like. Yeah, in terms of the misogyny, I have to wonder if it is anti-woman. If this was the new Air New Zealand brand proposition, and they did, how they had those ads with the girl running around with the ribbon and stuff. If they were running this like they were running that on every billboard, every bus, ads in the 6 o'clock news, then you could kind of go, wow, that's interesting that this airline has decided to align itself with putting down desperate old ladies. But seeing that it was an internet-only silly throwaway joke, I don't think you can take it that seriously.
So that opens it to a wider thing. So the companies can now look at various different mediums and target campaigns to that specific medium as opposed to cover everything with the same campaign.
Exactly. Clever companies do, and that's what this company is doing. It's very clever. It's succeeded. They got an enormous amount of coverage.
Okay. So overall, you'd say that this was reasonably successful.
Successful beyond their wildest hopes. Okay. The amount of coverage that they've got, and even if some people have said that it isn't good and they don't like it, you just get that feeling that it's a whipped up story and it's a nonsense. They managed to find 3 wowsers who will attack something, and next thing you know, it's a story.
What about advertising standards? Do they come into this at all? Can they?
I think the internet's a bit of a wild west with a lot of that stuff. It's all contextual as well. So if it was, and the big thing about the internet is that you don't have to watch it. You push play, you can push stop. It's not like you're sitting down to the news and it gets blared at you. You've got to kind of seek it out.
But this is going to be interesting if there is some kind of complaint.
Yeah,
about this,
I'd be very interested to see what happens.
What actually happens, whether or not it can be upheld when it's on YouTube.
I'll go do a little bit of research there. Yeah. As far as I understand, the process pretty much internet's the Wild West and leave us alone.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah, which is fine with me, actually, to be honest. Hey, Simon, thanks so much. Talk to you next week. SimonPound.com for more on that as well. Track here from Tourette's. This is called City Lights. Radio Wammo Breakfast.